full of comfort food.
Oh, wow, that's right. I don't blame you. There's good food worth coming for. I'll let you hold your reservations. I'm finished. My name's Sarah, and I've travelled up from Loughborough today. So I'm not too far away. I'm from the East Midlands, but I am also planting a church up in Hartlepool. So this is quite a nice stopgap. Actually, I'll continue up there tomorrow. So I've got the incredible privilege of sharing an element of my story with you, and it's a great conversation. It's great, isn't it, to share our stories. Not only how we came to faith, but the faithfulness of God through it. There's real power in story, and I want to encourage you all in this room, if you are a believer, to really get to grips with understanding your story. And when you understand your story, being able to share that with other people is really powerful, and God will really use that. People out there are searching, right? And God has placed somebody in your life where He's going to use you to share Him with them. Let's take advantage of that. I've got two boys. They are 20 and 18 now. I know, yeah. So my 20-year-old, he is a youth worker, so he has not left home, but he's got one of those abilities to spread across the whole house. Anybody know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter where he is, there is something of him in every single element of the house. I think it's just to remind me that he's still there. And then my 18-year-old Josh, he is in the middle of, well, he's got his A-level exams. He's going to uni. I can't talk about that at the minute without wanting to cry, so we're just going to brush past that. But he is doing his exams at the minute, so he has got that. So in our house right now, he's got this glazed revision look across his face, and you know that look, right? And so the way that he has a break is playing golf, which is great, but he does it in the house. Man, I know. So I'm coming home, and also all I'll hear across the landing is he's set up this run where he's practicing his putts from our study, which he's now overtaken, all the way to the end of the hallway into his little putter. Or, like any golf fans in the room, no. Derek. What he's doing at the minute is he's chipping these golf balls from the lounge floor onto the chairs. I'm like, what is that all about? Honestly, stuff everywhere. So I live with two boys, and it's entertaining. But what is great is they're both driving now. I'm no longer a taxi. That season has come to an end. I know. Now I'm trying to share a car with an 18-year-old. That's interesting too. I came out of the house the other day, and I got downstairs. I'd woken up, got downstairs, and I looked out the window, and I was like, my car isn't there. Like, where is it? Zach, my eldest, decided that he was going to take my car and use my petrol instead of his own, but without letting me know about that. Like, honestly, it's just a joy, isn't it, being parents? I came to faith when I was 19, so in 2001 I came to faith. Just before not long before my 20th birthday. So I'm almost 44, for those who try to do the maths in the room. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what happened before I came to faith. To give you some context, because I want to talk to you about the beautiful restoration of God. That He's a God who restores us and who takes us to a different level in Him. And one of my favourite accounts in the Bible is the woman at the well. And I love the woman at the well in John 4 because I feel like it's one of the most real encounters that we ever see. This woman who is hurt, broken, her walls are as high as they are thick, and Jesus meets her exactly where she is at. But her initial response to Jesus is really prickly because she is just so broken. But Jesus never moves away from her. Jesus never judges her or condemns her. Jesus just loves her right where she is at. And I feel like that's what God has done with me. when I was younger, my home wasn't a safe home. So I just want to outline, put a disclaimer out there. My mum doesn't come off very well in my story, but we've got a good relationship now. God has done some great stuff in both of us, so I just want to put that caveat out there. She doesn't look like amazing in my story, but actually she's great. We've got a great relationship now. But what happened was that I remember some of my earliest memories are of cowering behind a sofa because home was so violent and so aggressive, and my mum used to beat me quite a lot, and my saving grace was my grandparents. My grandparents were really key. So I was born in Portsmouth. My family have got a long naval history. That's what my granddad did. My uncles were in the Navy as well, and that's where we were from. I used to live in Southsea, right by HMS Nelson, and they were my saving grace. So I would spend all of my time with my nan and granddad. My granddad was out at sea. My nan had a fruit and veg shop, and I would just be there all the time. I'd spend every weekend with them. And then when I was 8, my mum had. So my dad left when I was a year old, and I never had any contact with him apart from when I was about 5. And he was kind of a bit sporadic and didn't want anything to do with me. And my mum had remarried, and I've got a younger brother. There's 4 years between us. And my brother's dad was from the East Midlands, but I was never really fully in the family, right? So I was never really fully accepted by him. And mum, when I was 8, moved us to the East Midlands, which is quite a long way from Portsmouth. And then I had to start a whole new school. We didn't have any family around at all. We moved, and it was my brother's dad's family who were there, so they completely accepted my brother and was all in there, and I was always on the edge of the family. And things at home got aggressive, and because things were aggressive towards my mum then was aggressive towards me. And that kind of continued for a long time. And I remember when I was about 9 or 10, as we moved to the East Midlands, my granddad had just finished his 22 years service in the Navy, so they moved up to the Lake District, where my granddad was from. Still a long way from where we were. And what had happened is that we were taken to the police station one day. And I didn't know this until maybe about 18 months ago. It was one of those memories that was locked way away. And I was talking to my mum about some stuff, and she said, I can remember when that happened. And basically what had happened, there's been a bit of domestic violence incident, and it was way back in the early 90s. And I remember there were times when the police would come around and literally say, sounds like it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It was kind of those times, which was just mind-blowing now, isn't it? And we were taken to the police station, and my brother's dad had said to my mum, if you bring her back here, meaning me, I'm going to lock her in the house and set fire to it. My mum didn't make a decision to keep us all safe. My mum made a decision to send me to the Lake District with my grandparents. So I was 9 or 10. Had to move again away from everything, from people that I'd met, from friends, from school, and I had to start all over again. But what nobody knew is that my grandparents' relationship, their marriage, was cracking quite a lot down the middle. So I was also then in the middle of that. Their marriage broke down, and as it was breaking down, I was then shifted back to mum's. So again, had to move everything and reconnect again. And again, never fitted anywhere, never really belonged anywhere. Nothing really changed at home. Their relationship, my mum and her husband, my brother's dad's relationship broke down. He left the family home, but quite quickly after mum met somebody else. And things were going okay, and things were all right. But then when I was 11, things started to change. He'd not been in the house very long. They got married really quickly. He was very controlling, and there was a lot of domestic violence going on as well. they would go out drinking every Sunday, and I would be left at home, and my job was I had to clean the house from top to bottom and prepare Sunday lunch and make sure that it was ready for when they got back, whenever that time might have been. And I remember one time they got back and they were both drunk, and he'd told my mum that I'd not cleaned the fireplace very well. And my mum knocked me from one room to the other, from just bouncing off every wall possible. And he got this incredible amount of control over the situation. But what was also happening is that he was also beating my mum up. So this was all happening at the same time. My mum wasn't even... I think the real realisation of how tough things came was that I'm now 43. All of this happened to my mum before she was 35. So then, again, I didn't belong anywhere. I wasn't kind of brought into the family fold. I was just on the outside of it all. And then this night happened, and he said to me, "Would you like a treat tonight?" And I'd never had that. Didn't have a lot of money, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds good." And so we got a Chinese, which was really unusual for us. But that night I was sexually abused for the first time. And that continued until I was 13, when he finally left the family home. But what was happening at the same time is what the language I would use now, is that I was being groomed by my next door neighbour, who was 16 at the time, and he was abusing me at the same time. I didn't recognise it for that, and I thought that it was all my fault, and that I possibly had caused all of this stuff to happen. So I kept all of that on the inside and started to become quite angry. So I was never in trouble at school. I've never had detention, never had a bad report. But what I did do at primary school is fight a lot. I would look for the biggest boy in year 6 and I would just go and fight. And I would and that's what happened. That's what was going on for me. When I was 13, my mum met somebody else. We moved again about 10 miles away from where we were living. So I had to, the end of year 8 going into year 9, had to leave school again. Had to leave all of my friends again and go and live with this other guy and his son and my mum and my younger brother. But we were moving to a 2-bedroom bungalow, and he already has a son and my younger brother. So for 3 years I slept on the sofa, and all of my stuff was packed away in boxes. I had nothing around the house that was mine, and everything was, my clothes were in a airing cupboard. Nothing was mine at all. And at the time I also was suffering with depression. I was diagnosed with chronic depression when I was 15. Understandably, really. I think everything that was going on had started to come out. And I started to talk about my abuse. And I was, when I was doing my GCSEs, I'd always been really focused on before I became a Christian, I was heading towards the Navy. I'd had all of my interviews when I was at university, and I was ready to go. And I'd always been really focused on getting a degree. Like, I was not going to become another statistic. That wasn't going to ever happen to me. And so I knew that I was going to do my A-level. So I was talking to the careers advisor. Do you know when they used to come in and put all your details in a computer, and then they'd come up with this amazing list of things that you could possibly do with your life? I think telegraph pole erector was probably quite top of the list for me, which is hilarious. I then got called into my head of year's office, and it was back when there was those people who were education welfare officers. So my head of year was sat there, and so was this welfare officer. And they said to me, "Sarah, we really think that if you want to do your A-levels, you need to leave home." This is my head of year at 16 saying to me, "You've got to get out of there." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I went home and told my mum, and my mum just went, "Oh, okay." So again, I was faced in this place where I was just pushed aside again, didn't really belong anywhere, and mum was like, "Yeah, okay." So at 16, I moved into a hostel that was mixed. for 16 to 25-year-olds, male and female. And there was a lot of people in there who were in and out of the criminal justice system. And there was no real support there. But my head of year, who I now know is Christian, used to come and see me occasionally on a Saturday. I'd bring me some food or take me out for dinner or take me out for breakfast. So I was doing so I moved like a week before my first GCSE exam. Did my GCSEs and then went on to do my A-levels. I could stay in the hostel for 9 months, but there was no move-on provision at all. So then I moved into a shared house. And as I moved into the shared house, the benefit system wouldn't support me any longer. So when I was in the hostel, I could get what was income support whilst I was doing my first year of A-levels. When I moved out, I wasn't able to get that anymore because I wasn't living in supported accommodation and I was in education, so there was this loophole that I fell right the way through and didn't fit in. So I had to find a job. So I was working part-time at Domino's Pizza and I was doing my A-levels. But what I want to say is that there are moments when God keeps us from stuff, right? So when I look back at my life, I see that, like, I have never taken a drug in my life. God has completely kept me from that. I dated a dealer. I'm not quite sure how God kept me from it, but he kept me from it. He's just guarded me. I could have gone down so many different paths, but God just kept his hand on me the whole time, and he placed people around me. And I guess I want to say to you, you might be one of those people that God has placed around somebody's life, right? Who is going to just love them wherever they're at, whatever is going on for them. And this kind of I started to work at Domino's, and then I met this guy called Matt. And Matt used to talk to me about Jesus. You can imagine how that went. I was like, nah, I'm not interested. Don't even go there. Don't go there. So I felt so unloved. My self-worth was below the floor. That the way that I felt self-worth was by sleeping with people and being out drinking. And if I went out drinking and I didn't meet somebody, then I would just feel awful about myself. And I would be like, well, that's because you look like this. And that's because you're this. And all of those things. But inside, I was absolutely broken. The outside world looking in, I was doing all right. I wasn't getting into trouble at school. I was doing my A-levels. I was headed to university. I was following the path with the Royal Navy to go in as an officer. I was managing to live on my own, and I was managing to hold down a part-time job. And actually, I wasn't really doing a lot of stuff that a lot of 18-year-olds weren't doing at the time. So on the outside, I was doing okay. On the inside, I was absolutely broken. My walls were as high as they were thick. And I met Matt, and he knew everything that was going on. He knew everything. So I would tell him who I was sleeping with, what I'd been doing, what I hadn't been doing, and he would just tell me that Jesus loved me. I'd be like, yeah, I'm just not there. And he would be like, Sarah, this is really great news. I'd be like, don't tell me that there is good news. You have no idea. No idea. And I was so offended by this whole idea of good news. The Christian bookshop in our town was called the Good News Centre. I remember walking by it. Whenever I would buy it, I would just scour. I'd be like, what is good? What is good? Nothing is good. And I was self-harming and all sorts of things. Matt and I became really good friends, and he became my best friend. He was the only guy that I ever really trusted. And we, when I went to go to university, he gave me a Bible. He was a bold guy. And he gave me a Bible, and I never opened it. I kept it in its box. I took it with me to university, but I just left it on my shelf. And I was so alone with a backpack and a suitcase, and everybody else was arriving at halls with their families and all of this other stuff, and there I was just in this room and nobody else was there. And throughout the route of most of my life, there has been this real sense of isolation and rejection, and never really knowing where I was meant to fit, which led to all sorts of things. And I think that's why I love the woman at the well so much. Because she was a woman who came to Jesus, who had been totally rejected and totally pushed aside by everybody else in the community, yet Jesus welcomed her, right? And when I was in my first year at uni, I did all the usual stereotypical freshers stuff. I made the mistake of starting to see a guy from the rugby team. It's always a big mistake at university. They tell you to stay away from the rugby players, especially in the first year. And I wasn't even in a relationship with him. We were essentially just sleeping together. And I was meant to meet him, and he messaged me. We did have mobile phones, only just. And he just said, "Oh, I can't meet you tonight." I said, "Okay, no worries." So I went out with some friends instead, and I saw him with somebody else. Not a big deal, essentially. We weren't in any sort of relationship. But it spiralled me. And everything else that had gone in my life had just spiralled and brought it all crashing down. And one of my proudest things, my accolade when I was in uni before I was a Christian, was how much I could drink. And I'd been out and I'd drank a lot, and I got back to my room. And in our halls, it was kind of big, long corridors. There was 18 of us in this one hall, one corridor. And if you were the type of person that I was, people didn't always expect you to be there in the evening. And nobody checked on me. I locked my door, and I took every tablet that I possibly had in my room with the intention of ending my life. I had no plans on waking up. God had other plans, thankfully. I'm here. And I slept for 2 days, 48 hours solid. And I woke up, and I can remember as if it was yesterday, immediately thinking, there's got to be somebody out there because I shouldn't be here right now. I shouldn't be here. And I looked in the mirror, and you couldn't see the colour of my eyes because my pupils were so big. And then I started this internal journey. I didn't talk to anybody about it, but just asking some questions, wondering about some stuff, but also had all of this stuff going on around, how can there be a God when all of this has happened to me? What have I done to deserve all of this? How can there be a God? And I came home, I came back to Loughborough for Matt's brother's 21st birthday. We'd stayed in contact. And Matt had been asking me to church for about 3 years, and I'd gone to one carol service, I think. That was it. And he said to me, a couple of years after I became a Christian, he said to God, "I'm not asking to church anymore. I'm done. If you want her there, you've got to bring her. I'm finished with this." And we got in the car after Nathan's birthday, and I turned the radio down. I said to Matt, "Can I come to church with you tomorrow?" And he couldn't answer me. Thankfully, there was somebody in the back who said, "Yes, Sarah, you definitely can. It's okay." So I went to church on a Sunday morning, and I'd never experienced church before. And it's the same church that I'm in now. And I'd never experienced it, and I didn't know what to expect. But I'd never felt so welcome anywhere. And everything that the minister was talking about, he was telling me that, just talking about how much Jesus loved us, and Jesus died for us and rose again, and that he would do it even if it was just for me, and that I can be forgiven, and that there was this new life available to us. And he was just talking about this during his sermon. And you know the moment, right, when you feel like God's spotlight is completely on you. And then he asked if anybody wanted to give their life to Jesus, and my hand went up. I was like, "Oh, yeah." And that morning, I said yes to Jesus, and my life completely changed. Completely completely changed. The pain was still there. The brokenness was there. I look back, so I'm a minister now. And when I first came into ministry, I just spent a lot of time apologising to people who pastored me. Because I was a nightmare. I had a strong independent spirit, I was prickly, I was feisty, I was broken, I was hurt. I was a pastor's delight, absolutely. I sit in pastoral care meetings now and I think, oh yeah, I think I probably was on the list a lot. But God has done this. So I stand here today and I can talk to you about all of this stuff because God has restored me. God is a God who restores us, right? The woman at the well, what I love about that is not only is she really real, Jesus met her where she was at, but God completely transformed her, just that one encounter. And that one encounter with Jesus started to transform my life. But we all know that when we become Christians and we say yes to Jesus, it doesn't mean that life is great and rosy, right? Matt and I went on to get married. We got married, we got engaged, we started dating 4 weeks after I got saved. And then we got engaged very quickly, and then we got married when I finished university in 2003. In 2011, the boys were 4 and 6, Matt died very suddenly. We were both 29. I know, right? You can imagine my conversation with Jesus about that. And I remember saying to God, I totally believe this with all of my heart, that God is sovereign, He can do whatever He wants to do. And His timing is perfect. And we don't understand it, and we don't see the bigger picture. Because actually, when we think about it, eternity is this long, and we are living in this moment. Right? I have no idea about the bigger picture. But I know that life is more than what we are experiencing right now. I'm just passing through here. And so I believe that God is sovereign over all of that. But I said to God, taking the boys, Josh was just about to start school. Matt died in August, he started in September. And we moved in with my in-laws for a while, and I remember going upstairs and saying to God, are you kidding me right now? Are you actually kidding me? This is crazy. And I actually had the audacity to say, have I not been through enough? But then this, I did not get married to become a single parent. I've done everything I possibly can to never ever be like my mum, and now I'm raising children on my own. What? What? But what I love about Jesus is that we can be honest with Him. What I love about that is that God can take that. That He can take us being honest and real with Him. Because it's this incredible relationship that we have. That's what He invites us into, this real relationship, not this head knowledge, but this heart knowledge, this absolute desire to meet with Him face to face, to walk closely with Him, to know the love of Him, the grace of Him, the mercy of Him. To know that I can be really real with Him and He's never ever going to push me away. So when I became a Christian, God brought me into His family and has never ever rejected me and will never ever reject me and doesn't push me aside because He's got something else on His agenda, but actually I am the apple of God's eye. That's what the Bible says. That He loves me, takes great care of me. When Matt died, my whole world completely turned upside down. I felt like the rug had been taken from underneath me. Matt went into hospital for a regular procedure. It didn't happen in the end, but within 3 hours, Matt had gone. We were walking out of the hospital, he collapsed, and then that's it. He didn't come back. That was it. It was done. He'd gone to glory. But what is so beautiful about God is this restoration. That we can take hold of Him and trust Him with our lives. We can trust Him with everything. And then He just meets us where we're at. And He just takes us where we are at. And it doesn't mean that we don't have to have our edges softens. That we don't have to go through what it looks like to deal with the pain and the trauma of what we have faced. I look back at my life and think if that stuff was happening to me now, I would have been removed. But I wasn't. I was kept within that family. And we have no idea, do we, why we are born into the families we are born into. God knows. God knows that. My brother is walking with the Lord, and my mum is on her way, and it's just watching how God just takes us and moulds us and shapes us in our complete brokenness. And we have to be willing to meet with him. We have to be willing to allow him to do the work in us and through us. We have to be willing to say, okay, God, I'm going to trust you with this. Even though this is really hard, I'm going to trust you with it. That God has softened me. He's broken down my walls. He's healed my heart. He's used all of those things that I went through for his glory and his goods. That none of this is about me standing here and saying, look what I've come through. All of this is about me standing here and saying, look at what a good God we have. What a good God we have, who decided to take somebody like me and do something quite beautiful in and through. That God takes us at our brokenness, and when we allow him to moulds us, shapes us, heals us, sets us free, that we might know what it is to live in the fullness of him. I love the song you were singing earlier, the Lauren Daigle one. It says, you are not forgotten. You are not unseen. That it says, I will rescue you. I will send you an army in your darkest nights. In my darkest moment before I was a Christian, God sent an army for me. In that room at Bangor University, North Wales, I think it was February, I had no plans to continue my life. No. And it's taken a while for me to get to that point. So from the age of 15, I've never attempted suicide, but I constantly thought about it. Self-harm, not self-harming as a way of ending everything, but self-harm as a way of release. And God dealt with all of that. God dealt with all of that. And coming to know and journeying this stuff through, and journeying young widowhood through, and working that stuff out, and working out what it looks like for us to be healed. Healing is messy, right? Healing is messy. When we allow God in it, and he pours in the oil, because actually when we allow God to pour in the oil, the outcome can only be good. It's only going to be better. It's never ever going to be any worse. God is an incredible God of restoration, of complete transformation. And he continues to do work in us. And since becoming a Christian, I'm facing all sorts of things. I'm navigating stuff. Last year, my son Josh, who's 18, was diagnosed with cancer, and he's good now. He's good. There's no cancer in his body anymore, which is amazing. But sitting there as a mum and not being able to do anything, to take that away, having to watch him go through treatment, and not being able to do any of that, not being able to just do everything we need to take the place of the child and watch him navigate that. But knowing that in all of that, there is this beautiful God who loves us so very much that he sent his one and only Son to die for us, that we might know him and have this relationship with him. There are stories in everybody's life in this room. Every one of you has got some sort of story. God has brought you through something. God is bringing you through something. He doesn't do that for us to stay quiet. He does it to bring glory and honour to him. To talk about this incredible, powerful, restorative God who loves us, that we can be honest with, that we can be real with, that we can talk about anything to. He says that it doesn't matter what you've been through, that he's never ever going to reject us. Never. Never. I have no idea why I went through what I went through. I know that I wouldn't be the person I am here today if I hadn't. I know that I wouldn't have the story that I've got if I've not been through it. There is a resilience within me that is very, very deep. There is an independence within me that has had to be harnessed over the years. That is for his good, and it gives me a fight when it comes to it going after the kingdom for him. That there is a fight in me. There is an independent fight in me. And that's God. That's God, and that's the God that we serve. I just want to finish, I guess, by saying this. That we all have a history. All of us. God can use that for his glory. When we share our stories and we talk about what God has done, let's not focus on the bad stuff that we did before we came to know him. Let's focus on the way God has restored things in our lives, right? And when we say that I've shared some stuff that has touched something within you, that has raised something in you, but just like Jesus went to the well to meet the woman, just the way that she was, Jesus comes to meet us just the way that we are. Whether we've been Christian 75 years, or 2 weeks, or not yet there. Every day Jesus shows up. Every day Jesus shows up for us. Every day he's there ready just to meet us however we are, whatever's going on for us. And he gives us an incredible opportunity for us to be very honest with him and very real with him. But when we encounter Jesus, we can never be the same again, ever. But when we encounter Jesus, that he takes us and uses us for his glory, his goodness, his grace, in his place of incredible grace and mercy. So I wonder if it'd be okay for me to pray. Is that okay? I don't know where any of you are at in this space right now. But I wonder if you could just take a moment to put your hands out before God's. And just invite him into whatever's going on for you right now. The good, the bad, the ugly. And if you're in this room and you don't have a relationship with Jesus, then don't leave this place without speaking to one of us about what that looks like for you. Because it's so important. Heavenly Father, I want to thank you that you are a God who restores us. That you're a God that we can be really honest with. God, that you never ever reject us. Ever. The God that you say to us in your word that all who call on the name of Jesus will be saved.